And welcome back to News Now from Fox. I'm Andrew Kraft. We're going to keep it in California for our next story here on News Now. But the state is dealing with a major growing housing crisis. This has been a political football really in the state for many years. Many people are unable to afford sky-high rents or pay their mortgages, and thousands are living on the streets right now. Hundreds of what could be affordable apartments, though, are sitting empty at the moment. Bay Area investigative reporter Brooks Jarosz explains why a former military neighborhood looks like a ghost town. We're going to play his story out right now.
On the outskirts of Travis Air Force Base in Fairfield stands a ghost fleet of former military families' homes.
So when you see all this empty housing like this, what do you think?
I think about the number of people that are sleeping on the street tonight and wish we could put a roof over their head.
Data shows Solano County has more than 1,200 homeless, including 160 veterans. Housing advocates now see an opportunity to bridge that gap.
These homes are up, the walls are up.
For 20 years, the Georgetown complex was leased by the Air Force to house service members. That ended a decade ago, and the apartments have sat vacant.
So this is one of the units that Hunt remodeled.
Hunt Companies built and owns these 300 units. It's prepared to invest $36 million to renovate and market the property as affordable housing, even setting aside dozens of apartments for veterans.
I think it's in the best interest of the community.
But there's a problem. The base, which is just a stone's throw away, controls the water lines and refuses to turn them back on.
What is the holdup here?
I mean, I think that's the $1 million question.
The answer is more complicated. The Air Force says it doesn't typically provide utilities for non-U.S. government ventures and directed us to the city of Fairfield, which ironically said the plan doesn't hold water.
Mind-boggling. Absolutely mind-boggling.
J.R. Wilson is an Army vet who helps find other veterans homes and jobs. He says with so many homeless or squeezed out because of rising rents, doing something here just makes sense.
Remove the obstacle. Let the water flow. Let the essence of life flow into these homes and revitalize our community.
Hunt says it would pay and replace the old pumping system and wants to work out a temporary agreement with the base until city expansion allows Georgetown to connect to Fairfield's lines.
To not want to do that is unbelievable. Unbelievable.
For years, the developer has pushed to get the housing back online. The city said in 2016 the community is eligible for water, sewer, and emergency services. But last year, the city manager named a host of outstanding issues, miles away from schools, grocery stores, and police and fire stations, and far from public transportation with only one way in and out, posing a threat to public safety.
I mean, I really think the conversation needs to be about what needs to be done and how do we work together to make this happen instead of all the reasons that folks are throwing out there that it shouldn't go forward.
The city refused an on-camera interview and said this is not a priority project, claiming it puts low-income residents at a disadvantage. For now, the homes, basketball court, and playgrounds just sit.
With all my heart, I wish I could be there.
Air Force veteran David Boatwright is disabled on a fixed income and lives in Stockton. He'd like to be living in Fairfield, close to the base for medical care, the commissary, and other resources.
I could get on my scooter and I can go right over and get all the help I need.
His PTSD previously led him to a life of depression, addiction, and homelessness.
That despair, that loneliness, that shame, that guilt, that remorse, all just helps to keep him down.
These days, what keeps him looking up? His pet parrot, Precious.
Hi, Precious. Hi, baby.
But he longs for a safer community made up of his peers to connect with.
Open the door for us, because we need it. Us veterans need it.
This is a way to keep them from that ledge.
Hunt has hired engineers, developed designs, and paid the city $12,000 in application fees, but the city has not issued permits.
If we can press go, we're less than a year away from having these be ready to have people move in.
Without a broker deal for water and secondary roadway access, construction is at a standstill with no signs of progress.
And we're being joined right now by Fox 2's Brooks Jarosz. Brooks, what else did you learn while covering this story that might not have been in what we just saw? Just kind of more developments going forward.
Andrew, one of the things here is there's just not enough housing being built fast enough across California. And the city of Fairfield, which is at odds with the developer over what to do here, has boasted about projects where they are building more affordable apartments that are going to come online soon. The problem is it's only about 190, and these are 300 that are sitting up at that site. So just having an additional 300 could make a big difference for so many families that are really being squeezed out as rents continue to be very high here and people are having trouble paying their mortgages.
And Brooks, what are California state lawmakers saying? Because obviously this for well over, several years, this has been such a hot button issue in the state. Do they have any response?
Well, a couple of them are actually set to meet with city officials and even the air base to try to hammer out something here to make this housing project happen. Of course, there's a lot of other factors you have to take into consideration. One being we have so many families or those who are homeless or veterans that need additional services. That could be everything from basics like food and water to transportation and getting around. And in that particular area that we've highlighted in that report, it's a few miles away. So there's real concern from a city perspective to having a bunch of lower income renters or people that need additional assistance. And if there was to be an emergency, how do you get emergency vehicles there when you have problems like the railroad tracks or other things in the way? So lawmakers are involved. They want to see this project move forward, but there's still a lot of that governmental red tape that we're dealing with, and everyone's kind of pointing the finger at something else rather than looking for what are the common solutions and how can we get there to provide this housing quickly.
And Brooks, you kind of highlighted just one example there in the Stockton-Fairfield area right outside of Travis Air Force Base. But are there other areas in the state as well that are dealing with the same issue?
Well, this is a huge challenge. I mean, one of the things, if you look in the Bay Area specifically, San Francisco and Oakland, there's not a lot of space or a lot of opportunities to build new housing. So they have to look at existing places, and that is being done. But currently with the pandemic, we're seeing homeless people who have been taken in as part of these statewide initiatives and even countywide initiatives to get people who are homeless into hotel rooms, but that's only temporary. So now you need to transition those folks into more stable, affordable housing. That is quite a feat and quite a task to be done. And so it's just kind of being taken little by little and being able to do these large projects. They just can't seem to be done fast enough. And so that's the challenge that city governments have, as well as county and the state, to come up with a more comprehensive plan. In some ways, the funding is there. It's just the means in terms of where to do it. Because a lot of people who are paying their taxes, who live in these high-income neighborhoods, they simply don't want affordable housing projects in their backyard, a valid concern. But also the flip side of that is, well, where else are these people going to be able to call home? We don't want it to be the streets. And I think that's what they're grappling with now.
Brooks, last question for you. What will you be looking for on this issue going forward in the weeks and months ahead?
Well, one major thing that stood out to me is prior to the pandemic, we had 1.3 to 1.5 million people in need of an affordable home across the state, people who were basically homeless or living in a shelter. I'm interested to see what's going to happen in the months ahead in terms of the homeless population. Has it gone up? Have new projects come online to help bend that curve so people aren't sleeping on the streets? We just don't know that yet because a new homeless count has not been done. That's something I'll be looking for in the weeks and months to come.